Hey guys, welcome back to RPG A Day 24, 2024. Today's prompt is acclaimed advice. There's a lot there's a lot of advice out there on the internet about running or playing in role-playing games. It's honestly next to comic book continuity and, I don't know, wrestling facts, it's probably one of the most highly curated things on the internet. Well, that and Forgotten Realms setting lore, but it's whatever. But still. Um, but yeah, so there is a lot of RPG advice, and a lot of it tends to be repetitive. And then there's the videos that are like, well, that piece of advice isn't really helpful advice at all. Excuse me. Um, but when I think about this piece of advice, my friend Fry posted his video today, and he said it's have fun, and he has a very good video that I'll link as always down in the doobly doo. But it was about have fun, and part of that he goes in about kind of the role playing games manifesto, which I guess was in some of the TriStat books, and it's about having fun. Ultimately, is the thing about having fun. Um, and ultimately, that is the golden rule of role playing games, right? Having fun, getting out there, getting together with your friends, telling a fun story in a fantasy world, in a historical setting, in a horror setting, telling a fun story. And in that, I think I would add, don't be afraid to add things. Or, first, find a system you are comfortable with running, all right, that fits your style as a game master, as a player. Um, Find something. And I guess I'm speaking more from the GM side of the screen here. Um, so, for GMs, find a system, whether it's 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, whether it's the new rule set for 5e, the new rule set for Dungeons and Dragons, rather, 5.5, 6th edition, whatever you want to call it. Or maybe it's Pathfinder, or GURPS, or Savage Worlds, or, my personal favorite, basic role playing. Learn the system, learn its kind of quirks. You don't have to learn everything. No one knows everything about every system. But find a system you're comfortable with and that you can teach your players easily. That helps facilitate that fun. In ways that you may not have anticipated. I go back to this idea of system, of game, because there's so many out there, and there's so many things that we can learn from what each game does. But I always go back to basic role playing a lot of the times. I love that game. It taught me a lot as a game master, as a designer. It's taught me a lot and continues to teach me a lot about how to structure stories at the table. And part of that is its malleability. I can run pretty much any genre I want in that system. I can run horror. I can run it. Pulp 30s adventure. I can run sword and sorcery. And it's also easy for my players to learn, and I'm very comfortable with that setting. Even though I'm very comfortable with those rules. Even though I don't know everything, I have to look up stuff constantly in the rule book to at least read how they do it, and then make my judgment call. But I also I enjoy that, but I also enjoy I just enjoy the flexibility of it. It's not so rigid. And it doesn't reward, it's very hard to munchkin in a game like that because the focus is more on role playing, ROLE playing, not rolling like rolling dice. And I've just found over time, I used to be a very crunchy kind of simulationist player. And I've just slowly chipped away at that, and I've become a bit more of a cinematic kind of what's going on in the narrative type player. And that's the kind of stuff that I want to I want to tell stories that are about heroes, heroes of action, going out there and solving the problem and dealing with the consequences of that. For me, basic role playing has become that in my mind. Not that I still don't love playing D&D, and not that I still don't love creating and reading stuff that are D&D, or even helping write my own game system now. But I always go back to some of those lessons that I learned when I first picked up Call of Cthulhu for the first time. It allowed me to imagine other games and other possibilities. And I think that's part of find a game, read a lot of games. If you take chunks from different games and you start Frankenstein stuff together, that's cool too. You gotta be careful with that because it does cease to become that game. Games do have identities, but in order to help your friends have a good time, find a game they like. And I know that there's hesitation to trying different games that aren't, D&D or not your established group game. Because it's, I've always said, I don't want to learn new rules. Well, if you're really passionate about a game, that doesn't really matter. Your players probably, it's not so much the game, it's the people around you. It's getting together. It's you running the game. It's you having the passion for the setting or the story or the system that is really driving your group. As game masters, we are very much the center of the social circle in a lot of ways. We're the ones who put it together. And we're the nerds. We're really the ultimate nerds because we have way too many books. Way too many books. But we love those books. We love those books, and we love reading them, and we love getting ideas from them. So that's my other piece of advice for game masters, is just read. Read a ton. Read comics, read books, nonfiction, watch movies, watch documentaries. Just get ideas from everywhere for your games. And that'll surprise you. For players on the having fun side of things, be flexible. Don't be so rigid in what your character can do. It's so easy, especially in kind of class level games, where, my character sheet says this, that means I can do this. And it's so hard, it's so easy to get into that rigid thinking of, I can only do this, and this is the role I play, and I don't want to do this because this, but branch out. I'm playing a Cavalier right now in a Spelljamming game, and she was just from Kryn originally, but Uh, she's very much she's a cavalier. She's a mounted warrior. She has even ridden on a dragon a couple times and fought on Dragonback. But another thing about her is she was a spy for the Knights of Solamnia. She would do the kinds of things that really, because of her status as a woman, she would be able to do some missions that, a typical Knight of Solamnia wouldn't be able to do. So there are skills that she has that she wouldn't, that don't necessarily help her as a fighter, but it occupies this role. And that is a cool character. Cool character kind of have, that's kind of like the Aragorn idea, getting rid of the ranger and becoming the king idea, getting rid of your one part of your life and accepting this new destiny on you. And that's very fantasy, that's very romantic and fun. It can be really fun to play that type of character. I'm working on a new character for another game that is kind of a vigilante kind of character, but it kind of plays with gender identity. I'm just kind of where I'm at in my headspace, and I want to play around with some stuff. This person who's got 3 different identities, and they all present differently. There's the vigilante identity that presents one way, there's the alter ego, and then there's her their real identity. That's another layer of identity, but yeah, just have fun. Play around with things. Play around with genre. Don't just pigeonhole yourself into one thing. Because after all, this is a game of imagination we're playing. It's a product of imagination. And that is the most powerful computer. We can imagine things that it would be a nightmare to code into a computer game. And you're not. And also, if a rule, you can change rules as long as it's logical in the situation. But also, if it's cool, if it's thematic, if it's cinematic, if I can see it as a game master, if I can see the scene in the movie or see the effect that would be used, I'm probably going to let it happen. Because I want cool stories to tell. Alright, guys. That is it for me. Really short one today. Hope you guys have a great day, and hope you guys get out there and play some games, roll some dice, and report back and tell me your stories about some acclaimed advice you have. Have a good one.